I'm Darren Morton.
I'm Simon Matthews. This is Lift,
The Lifestyle Medicine podcast where we dive into the science of health and well-being. Well, howdy there, brother Simon. How are you doing in sunny, I'm assuming it's sunny Madrid?
See, actually, it's not sunny Madrid this week, Darren. It's uncharacteristically rainy Madrid. And the reason is there's been a big storm system called Storm Jana, Jana, which has moved across the Atlantic through Portugal and then Spain. And it brought with it a real sudden drop in temperature, squalls, winds, rain, drizzle, and even thunderstorms. So,
well, there you go.
It looks like we're on the back end of it.
I feel compelled right at this moment to switch into grandfather mode. You know, your granddad who would say, "You don't know the meaning of the word work," or "You don't know, you think that's something." Well, here's my story. So Australia we're just coming out of the end of being hit by a cyclone. So none of these little sort of storms with a little bit of drizzle and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, we've had some winds and flooding, but I located some distance south of the.
Yeah, you're to the south. Yeah,
it's drizzly here, but we haven't had any cyclonic type episodes. So, but anyway, nice to see you again.
You too.
I have a question that I'd love to start by asking you, and that is, what are the song my favorite things? What's that from?
These are a few of my favorite things. I don't know who sings it.
Yes. I think it's a Sound of Music number.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So, Simon, I'm interested. What are three of your favourite things?
Oh my goodness, three of my just favourite things, just generally in life.
Yeah, favourite things.
Okay. I would have to put just travel near the top of the list. I love being on the move. I love seeing new places. I love new experiences, new people. So travel would be close to the top of the list. I would say food and cooking, meals and cooking for me. Also close to the top of the list. I love cooking. I often say I'm not creative. I'm not a creative person. I can't. I'm 58 years old. If you ask me to draw someone, I'll draw you a stick figure. It's about as good as it gets for me. But when it comes to cooking and food, I do have a bit of a creative streak. So I can find a recipe for something, and then develop ideas about. I don't like that part of it, but I'm going to change it in this way, and then make something that I really like. So that would be number two. Travel, cooking, and there are so many things, Darren. You're putting limits on me here, dude.
It wasn't meant to be that challenging.
I'm going to say just time by myself, time to recharge. That's one of my favourite things as well. I after I've been working all day, I adore just finding a quiet corner of a room and sitting there by myself. Yeah.
Not rocking in the fetal position, just sitting. Yeah, that's good. Well, in the spirit of three of our favourite things, I would love to chat with you today about three of my favourite lifestyle medicine related research studies, publications.
Cool.
And so this is in no particular order, but I think these are three landmark studies that really, for me, just drew me in when I learned about it, and I've just never been able to put them down. They're always sort of feature as those seminal studies in my mind. So I want you to cast your mind back. We're going all the way back, Simon. This is in no particular order, but number one, back to 1990, and I can only imagine what you were wearing in 1990. but I enjoy thinking about it.
I had hair in 1990.
You had long hair?
No, I've never had long hair, but I had more hair.
That's what tends to happen. Well, I had less hair on my chest, But that's,
Ah.
isn't it? We tend to lose hair from where we want it. We gain it where we don't really. But anyway, that's irrelevant to this particular story.
So I know. I think I know the name just because you've given the year.
Yeah.
I think I
Okay.
know
This
the
is
name of the person whose study you're going
right.
to talk
Go
about.
for it.
I think it's got.
I.
I think it's got 6 letters.
Yep.
Starts with O, ends
Yep.
in RNISH.
Yes. Starts with O, ends with Nish. That's correct. Dean Ornish, and obviously Dean Ornish is considered he'd be sort of one of the grandfathers, really. Maybe he wouldn't like me referring as a grandfather, but at least fathers of modern lifestyle medicine. I think he's made an outstanding contribution and done so much great work. But to me, one of his landmark studies was 1990. It was in Lancet, and as we know, that's sort of one of the premier medical journals. And he was the first guy, to my mind, to do a randomized control trial where he took people who had established heart disease. And, at the time, and even to this day, and perhaps we can talk about this in just a moment, but there was this prevailing thought that heart disease is just a progressive disease. So you get this, it just progressively gets worse, and, that's the way you got to deal with it. And so what he actually said is, well, let's see what would happen if we actually instigated intensive therapeutic lifestyle change. And so he called it the lifestyle heart trial. Really 4 pillars to the intervention that he was getting him to do. So it was nutrition, physical activity, stress management, and social connectedness. And I love a lot about the work that Dean Ornish has done, but he was the one that wrote that book called Love and Survival. And what's interesting, within lifestyle medicine, we all jump to nutrition, physical activity, but he actually, I've heard that he would argue that having social connectedness and love in your life is probably as important or even more important than those things. So,
Yeah.
Anyway,
Well,
so
if you listen to Robert Waldinger too
yeah,
on the Harvard Health Study,
yes,
he would support that idea, I think,
yeah, well, that's
because
yeah,
over many years, social connection is proving to be an extraordinarily robust predictor of
yes.
health and longevity.
Yeah, that's correct. And then with that
Yeah.
Harvard study, like you say, they found that one of the best predictors of longevity was social connectedness particularly amongst males in their sort of 50s, and even more so than their cholesterol levels and all those other determinants that are very well established. So our friend Dean, he puts people through this intervention, randomised these people, actually, collected some fairly sophisticated measures for the time. He had angiograms. So he could see that these people had stenosis. They had, reduced size of their arteries. And then what he did, put them on this intervention, and lo and behold, what he was able to demonstrate here is that this thing called cardiovascular disease that we all think is just progressive could actually show signs of reversal.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was, for me, the first time where lifestyle medicine in the cardiovascular realm really steps to the fore, because A, it's the Lancet, B, it's a randomized control trial. And what he was showing, and what I loved, is that through sophisticated measures for the time, the angiograms, you were actually getting reductions in the blockages of these arteries. And what was really fascinating about it too is that there was a dose response here. So he actually measured compliance of his participants, and what he found is for those people who were most compliant, they got the biggest reduction. For those even that were still doing some of it, they actually got some real benefits there too. So I love that. That's one of my favourites. And what I don't know if you've got any reflections on, because obviously you're familiar with that study too.
I was going to say it's always instructive to try and take your mind back to the time. So 1990, I mean, obviously, you and I were alive in 1990, and I can recall things that happened in 1990. Actually, I started dating my wife in 1990.
Oh.
We've been married for 33 years now.
Nice.
So yeah.
Good on her.
But if you take your mind back there and try and think about what was going on and what some of the prevailing views were of various things, a randomised controlled trial that said you need to do nothing except modify your lifestyle would have been pretty out there at the time.
It was out.
Yeah.
It was definitely out there. And, you know, and he's, you know, Dean Ornish has a bit of a history of this. And obviously he's a thought leader and courageous, you know, to be able to go into this realm, because it wasn't, you know, it certainly wasn't the convention. And look, and even today, you know, look, I was only just a couple of years ago, I saw, and I got most exercised about this, but there was a report in the Sydney Morning Herald written by a cardio thoracic surgeon. I won't mention any names, but in this article, they spelt out how this thing called lifestyle medicine was a hoax and there was nothing to it. And if they thought for a moment, you know, there was, I think this was verbatim, if I thought for one moment that getting people to modify their lifestyle would affect their disease progression, of course I'd do that, but there's nothing in it. It doesn't. And I was thinking, people, this is like 30 years ago. There were studies published in Lancet which actually showed this conclusively. You know, what's gone wrong? What rock are you living under that you don't know this sort of information? So
and in 2025, we don't just have the Ornish study now either, do we? I mean, we've got bucket loads of studies that demonstrate this same idea.
Yeah, for sure. So favourite study number one, and once again, in no particular order, and I've got lots of different studies that I love, but I think this was a landmark study, and what I think it was a watershed moment for lifestyle medicine in some regard, because being published in a prestigious journal like this. But I think for years we'd known that, you know, lifestyle is great prevention, but what I think it moved lifestyle medicine into the curative space as well. So this isn't just about sort of, you know, primary and secondary prevention. This is actually tertiary. This is for people who have established conditions. There are things that they can do. And obviously he was also standing on the shoulders of other giants. You know, I'm thinking of Corbel Esselstyn and some of these that have done, you know, remarkable work. Nathan Pritikin, who basically did his self-experiment, and actually, you know, by all accounts, it was only after he passed that when they did an autopsy, they showed that he'd actually reversed all his, you know, reversed his condition as well. But I love that study. And Dean Ornish, you know, just shout out to him. I know that he probably doesn't listen to our podcast, but if you are, Dean, you're an amazing character, and keep up the great work, because he's done work, you know, very innovative work looking at interventions for even things like cancers and you know, telomere length, and looking at, you know, longevity. He really has been a thought leader. So number one, Dean Ornish, Lifestyle Heart Trial, 1990. A beautiful job. Next one. Here's number two. Dun, 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 dun. I know the anticipation is killing you, Simon, but the second one that I love, and once again, these are published in, you know, high-ranking journals. So this is the New England Journal of Medicine, 2001, 2002, 2001, 2002. It was the diabetes prevention program. And, you know, just a little side note, you know what? This was the first study that I remember looking at and reading and thought, who are the authors here? And it was hard to find the authors. And it was because they actually published it under the name of the Diabetes Prevention Program Group. And I thought, you know what? I quite like that, because, you know, sometimes it just felt like to me there's no ego involved here. You know, and not saying that, you know, hey, I've got my name as the first author on some papers, and I'm happy to do that, and I know you have too. But I just thought this was a really nice sort of sentiment. It was like a collective, you know. This is we're publishing under that collective. So,
well, it's just as an aside, this takes us in a whole other area, which perhaps we can talk about at some stage, about who owns knowledge, and you know, there's a strong move now towards journals that will publish so that the knowledge is free to the reader, but it then costs the researcher to publish. The other model that we have is a model that's free to the researcher, but costs the reader to find out. So there's some issues here to work out, I think, in how we make knowledge available and usable, available and accessible to people.
And you know what? I think that'd make for a great conversation. Let's chat about that sometime, because I think this whole move towards open access and hybrid models, I'm a big proponent and fan of. I think it's more ethical, actually. So let's talk about that sometime. But So diabetes prevention program, essentially what they did, lifestyle-based intervention, and what they were really interested in is taking people, so it was sort of secondary prevention. They were interested in people who were at risk and looking at their progression to developing diabetes. And so they had, I think there was around about, I'm just trying to remember the numbers now, I think for that particular study, but there was a sizable cohort, randomized people into 3 different groups. One group, they just let, they all had pre-diabetes. And so they said, one group, let's just let them roll on and under standard care, see standard practice, let's see what percentage of them then actually go on to develop full-blown diabetes. Second group, let's give them the best medication of the time. So they were at that time it was metformin. So let's put them on a pharmacological protocol. And then the third group, let's help them change their lifestyle. And what they really only had 2 outcome measures of that. They were interested in in the people losing about 7% of their body weight. So there was a weight loss component, and obviously, diet came into that, and then and become physically active. So they were encouraging to do about 30 minutes of moderate intensity activity most days, which obviously played into the weight loss protocol as well. And I think what I love about this, and so it was a prospective study. They followed people up over 4 years, and there's this beautiful little graph published. And if you're interested in checking it out, go to the study. But what you actually see is the progression, the percentage of people that went on to develop full-blown diabetes.
LIFT is supported by the LIFT Project, an educational adventure where you learn science-based ways to lift your mood and your life. The LIFT Project is lifting lives around the globe, in healthcare settings, workplaces, schools, universities and communities. To find out more, visit theliftproject.global.
And good news, metformin was really effective. So there actually was a significant reduction in the number of people who went on to develop type 2 diabetes on the metformin protocol. But lifestyle was twice as effective as metformin. So, this, and as I said, it's a really nice little graph that illustrates this. And to my mind, that just speaks volumes. Published once again, New England Journal of Medicine. There was actually a follow-up study conducted as a 10-year follow-up. And once again, lifestyle was still doing better than the other protocols, and it was more cost-effective as well. And so, for me, this just, once again, it just leapt out as, hey, this is lifestyle medicine coming of age.
Yeah.
That we can demonstrate here that it is the best medicine. It's the best medicine.
Yeah.
So I know you'd obviously be familiar with that study as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And metformin is an interesting drug, and I don't have a great grasp of the deep science around it, but I do know that it's implicated in longevity. It does seem to do something to, and I think I've got this right. In some populations, reduces cancer risk or reduces certain cancer risks. And increases longevity and decreases lifetime morbidity. And on the other hand, you got to say, well, do you want to be paying for something that you have to do every day, or do you want to walk out into the sunshine and go for a walk and eat some spinach and talk to some friends and live your life in an enjoyable way, and observe the impact that all of those things have.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I love that study. So Dean Ornish's the diabetes prevention group, and I think Dean obviously was demonstrating the efficacy of this in the heart disease context, cardiovascular disease. You have the diabetes prevention group, obviously working in the diabetes space, which was just, obviously diabetes has dramatically risen over the past few decades. Actually, and what as almost a capstone to that, I think there was, and I'm not including this on my list of 3 favourites, by the way, but it's still a good one. But in 2018, Lancet published another paper where they were actually looking at the use of lifestyle intervention, weight loss regimens for the reversal of type 2 diabetes. So they'd actually gone that one step further, and and some of the participants in that study had diabetes for up to 8 years. So this is not just early stage. This is like, it was established. And what they found, and I do think this was another watershed statement. I remember reading it when it came out in Lancet, and I just kept reading that line going, here we go, this changes everything. Because what they said is that in their study, about 50% of the participants were able to they don't use the word reverse, interesting enough. There's still fear around doing that for whatever reason. They'll talk about there's remission.
Putting it into remission, yeah.
But to my mind, what was happening is these people were normalising their blood sugar level profile. They were off all medication. And I'm thinking, well, you know what? That seems to me to be pretty much like they've reversed this thing. And so it's really, maybe we could talk about that another time as well. For years, even when I was doing work on other interventions, we always had to be very sheepish about using the word reversal of type 2 diabetes. So anyway, this Lancet article in 2018, their statement is that that remission of type 2 diabetes should be a practical goal for primary care. And I thought, wow, because they were leveraging off the fact that, about half of our participants were able to remiss their condition. So, once again, I love that diabetes prevention program, innovators, thinking outside the box, sort of going against the conventional thinking of the time. And lo and behold, look what comes out. So I would rate them.
Also both studies tackling two of the really major public health problems that we have around the world, cardiovascular disease and diabetes. Which of course also, it's worth noting that we now know both are at some level diseases of inflammation. So there's there's another process here that's going on. That's directing the course of these diseases. Nevertheless, studies like that are able to take something big in the world and I don't like this word. It's a very trendy word at the moment, but scalable. Things that can be scaled so that you have a massive worldwide impact, I think are really exciting.
Oh, absolutely. And in fact, the diabetes prevention program is still operating in the US and has grown and used it. It's a multi-center type initiative. So it's great work. So are you ready for my third one?
I know that I'm ready for number 3.
On the edge of your seat. So this
can I say, I'm really hoping that study number 3 is a study that shows how eating lots of chocolate and drinking lots of red wine is really good for your health.
I've got some bad news for you, brother.
Okay. I thought you were going to say that.
Yeah. Hang your head. No, so my third study actually comes out of the EPIC study. So the European Prospective Investigation of Cancer. It's sort of in your part of the world, I think. I was trying to remember where it was actually centred, but I know it was very broad. But they were collecting a lot of data, really interested in some of the determinants of cancer and some of the factors contributing to that. This one here, this particular arm of the study had around about 25,000 participants. And once again, it was prospective. They were looking at what lifestyle factors, and they had 4 key lifestyle factors they were mostly interested in. Number one was, well, you can consider this a lifestyle factor, but weight control. So for people who could keep their BMI, their body mass index, under 30. So, and I think that's important to note. We're not saying that people are super lean. This is like, within the ranking system, and obviously we've actually talked on another occasion about the limitations of this system. But that sort of below 25 is considered normal. 25 to 30 is sort of overweight, but above 30 is considered into the obese range. So they were interested in those people that could keep their BMI below 30. So they may have still been in the overweight rate, but below 30, didn't smoke, obviously, and smoking being a really important determinant. Ate a pretty healthy diet that they characterised as eating lots of fruits and veggies, like your mum used to tell you. And then the fourth one was being physically active. So weight control, not smoking, physical active, and healthy diet. And what I think what was so gripping about this one for me is then they were able to map it against, well, how are those 4 factors contributing to the likelihood, the odds ratios of the development of these range of different chronic diseases. And here were the stats. So number 1, heart disease. They estimated that about 78% of fatal heart attacks could be prevented if you could tick the box, those 4 boxes.
Yeah,
so
wow.
Keep your body weight, your BMI under 30, be physically active, eat a healthy diet, and don't smoke. Right, those 4 things, 78%. That's 8 out of 10 fatal heart attacks don't need to happen.
Yeah.
And we say these numbers, but as we do, I think I love the work of David Katz, who he wrote that great article about putting a face to the name, the numbers, and we sort of think 80%. Oh yeah, okay, 8 out of 10. But when we start to ask the question, well, do you know someone who's had a heart attack?
Yeah.
What about if in 8, put faces to that, in 8 out of 10 cases that didn't need to happen?
Yeah.
To me, that's pretty compelling.
Yeah.
Diabetes, type 2 diabetes was even more so. It was around about 92, 93% of type 2 diabetes didn't need to happen, as in their, in their estimation, if people were to adopt those 4 lifestyle related behaviours. About 50% of strokes were preventable through those 4 behaviours, and around about a third of cancers, which was quite interesting because cancers, I think lifestyle medicine historically has been, it's spoken a lot and injected a lot into the cardiovascular disease and the diabetes space, and now mental health. Cancers is a little bit harder to sort of, to work with, but what they were indicating is that about a third of cancers could be prevented through those 4 lifestyle choices. So I like that study. I think it's a pretty compelling message right there.
And there've been, since then, there's been several similar studies too, essentially that show that when you increase the number of lifestyle factors, you decrease the disease and death outcomes progressively.
Yes, that's right.
So that seems to be a robust effect.
Yes. It's like that stacking type effect. It's also it speaks to that dose response that Martin. I was going to say Martin Seligman then, but that Dean Ornish had found. A little bit actually helps. More, helps a whole lot more. And of course, probably the questions that goes to people's minds is, well, what's the least I need to do? What's the minimum bar that I need to get over in order to experience these benefits?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So there's a couple of things that I really like about this collection of studies, and I certainly don't want us to finish on a downer, but there's also something in the back of my mind that I think we need to talk about here as well. The thing that I really like, is twofold. First of all of these, and particularly the EPIC study that you just shared, reminds us that there is no silver bullet. There's not a single thing that we can do, a single thing that we can tweak or change or modify that's going to have an absolutely wonderful effect right across the board. We need all of those elements. We need diet, we need sleep, we need social connection, we need physical activity with elements of progression in it, and so on. So that's one thing. It's a good reminder to all of us that silver bullets don't exist.
I like that. Actually, I think it speaks to that multimodal nature of lifestyle medicine.
Exactly right. And that's actually the second thing that I like. All of this legitimizes the discipline of lifestyle medicine, and it says that the lifestyle medicine approach of looking systemically at all of these factors, not only in the individual but at community levels and policy levels, this is the thing. This is what will do the work. And we've had this discussion before. I've been in love systemic approaches to thinking since the late 1980s and early 1990s, even before I became a psychologist, when I was studying family therapy, and to be able to see systemic interactions between different elements and understand the power of a system-wide change is really crucial here. So I think all of these, really argue a strong case for having lifestyle medicine as a front and centre medical and health discipline.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I like that.
The thing that concerns me is that if you pick up a newspaper today or yesterday in the USA or Australia or New Zealand, guess what? Rates of diabetes continuing to grow, obesity continuing to grow, etc., etc., etc. So despite all of this, it seems that we're still not yet managing to implement it well.
Yeah.
And that's the challenge. We know all this works. I mean, the Ornish study, the EPIC study, all of those things were landmark studies at the time that really showed us something amazing. And I'm going to be a little bold here and say, I don't think we need to do any more of that research. We've done enough to demonstrate the power of this. Do we need to continue doing research that shows that drinking water hydrates your body? Do we need to do more research that shows that breathing air sustains life? No, we need to make sure that people have access to water, have access to air, know what to do with it, and so on. So our challenge now in lifestyle medicine is an implementation challenge.
I agree.
How do we take this and how do we apply it not just to an individual, but how do we think about this systemically? How do we think about this in communities? How do we think about this in terms of food systems, medical and health reward systems, access, policies around access and equity, being able to reach resources that are vital to sustain life, have access to those. I was in, I think I maybe shared with you a few weeks ago, I was in Orlando, Florida, just a few weeks back for some training, and I was staying in downtown Orlando, and I was horrified that within the, I don't know, probably 4, 5, 6 big blocks, and the blocks are big in downtown Orlando, within those 6 blocks, there was an absolute food desert. You just could not buy fresh food to save yourself. It was at least from where I was staying, it was at least a 10-minute car drive to be able to get anything that remotely resembled fresh food.
Wow.
So things like that are the challenges that we really need to need to address.
I agree. I think that to my mind, the randomised controlled trials, so those that are doing them, great work, keep it up. But to me, I think the jury's out. I think that the evidence is completely overwhelming. The challenge is how do we action it? What does implementation look like? And there's a whole lot of angles that we need to come at from, and a lot of research that needs to be done and shared. And I think a lot of innovative and entrepreneurial thinking that needs to take place in order to really help to realise its potential. Yeah. Simon, you didn't ask me what 3 of my favourite things are, but I shared my 3 favourite studies. I won't tell you, I actually, like you, it'd be hard to shortlist all of my favourite things. But what I will say, genuinely, is that one of my favourite things is chatting with you. So thank you once again for your insight and sharing. And we'll look forward to chatting again next time.
Wonderful. I'll look forward to it. See you soon.
Lift is presented by Simon Matthews and Darren Morton. It's sponsored by the Lift Project and supported by Avondale University. Music provided by Pixabay. If you have a question or a topic you would like to hear more about, send us an email to podcast@lift.com. theliftproject.global. The Lift Project. Lift your mood, lift your life.